I'll see you all again soon. But for now, I'll hand you over to Helen, who will be starting the webinar for us.
Thanks, Jason. And yeah, I'll be starting off this webinar. And so just to start off, just a brief introduction of what we're going to cover. First, I'm going to talk a bit about your arrival in Cambridge and St Edmunds, so a bit of practical information about how to get here. Um, then Carly will talk a bit about accommodation and what the arrangements for that are like. Um, and Jason will then talk about the beginning of the year, and then Nathan will talk about what to expect once you are a college member. So, arriving in Cambridge, I'll just cover a bit about how to get to Cambridge in terms of the travel arrangements, and things to sort of bear in mind, particularly for an international student. I'll talk a bit specifically about how to get to St Edmunds once you're actually in Cambridge, how to find your way, and also what to do once you sort of arrive at college. So, Cambridge is pretty well connected to London by various modes of public transport. So, you can get the train. There are direct trains to King's Cross and Liverpool Street, and also by bus. If you're coming from abroad, there are direct trains from Stansted Airport. There's also connections from if you are traveling into somewhere like Heathrow, you can then travel into the centre of London, and it's very easy to then get a rail connection. There are also buses that go. There's National Express coaches, so they kind of connect bigger cities in the UK. So you can often get ones from London that will go to the centre of Cambridge. So they'll go from major airports like Heathrow, Luton, Gatwick, etc. There's also direct connection to Birmingham by train. So if you're coming in from that direction, you can get in. And yeah, there's also various, well, yeah, other connections on train, so from Brighton, etc. In terms of arriving at St Edmunds, so Cambridge is actually a very small city. So once you yeah, sorry, I was on mute there. Um, so it's 15 to 20 minutes walk from the bus terminal or 40 minutes walk from the train station. When you arrive, though, you'll probably have a lot of luggage, so you probably wouldn't want to walk. So, in terms of getting to St Edmunds, the best thing to do is either get a taxi, which usually costs about £8 to £10 from the station, or you can get a bus. There are a few bus routes you can get, but again, with a lot of luggage, you probably just want to get a taxi, probably most convenient. So, in a taxi, it will only take about 10, 15 minutes, depending on the traffic. Um, So, how to find St Edmund's College? You can easily find it on Google Maps, um, and we've got the postcode here that you can put into your sat nav or Google Maps. And if you get a taxi, you just say to taxi driver St Edmund's College, and they'll all know where it is. Um, and also, we've got the My Free Words code or the main college entrance. So it should be pretty straightforward to find. If you get lost, you can always contact our Porter's Lodge, who'll be very happy to provide directions. So when you first arrive at St Edmunds, the first thing you should do is follow the signage and report to the Porter's Lodge. This is right at the front entrance. It's open 24/7, so it doesn't matter when you arrive. We realised that as well, if you're coming from abroad, that you might arrive at sort of any time of day. So the first thing to do would be to report there. They will then give you your university card or a temporary one if you get here early, and they'll show you to your room if you're going to be in college accommodation. So I hope that all makes sense, but please feel free to submit any questions on the Slido.
Thank you, Helen. Um, okay, so I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about a college accommodation. So if you are an undergraduate, graduate medicine or foundation year student, you are guaranteed accommodation at St Edmunds. You can book your college accommodation once your place is confirmed, as long as we have all your documents, and that includes your financial guarantee and the certificates from your previous qualifications. So we are still waiting for those from a few people. If that is you, if you could try and sort those out as fast as possible, that would really help us and also you. If you are a postgraduate student and you haven't yet booked college accommodation, unfortunately, it's now unlikely that you're going to be able to book any. Once you're confirmed, you will still receive a link to the room booking portal. And you're welcome to keep checking the portal for any rooms that become available as a result of cancellations. We are expecting a handful more rooms to be released in the coming weeks. However, there are not going to be enough to meet the demand of all the people that are waiting for one already and any of those that will be confirmed in the coming weeks. So once you have been given that booking link, you will be notified by email if and when batches of rooms are released back to the portal. But as I've just said, we don't expect there to be very many, unfortunately. So if you are a postgraduate student who doesn't yet have college accommodation, we do now recommend that you try to find accommodation in the private rental market outside college. You can also contact the university's accommodation service who can help you find somewhere. Their information, the web page for them is on the screen now. I'll leave that for a couple of minutes in case anyone wants to take a photo or note down that link. Okay, so if you have already got your college accommodation sorted, or you're an undergraduate and you're expecting to get that sorted in the next few weeks, as you might expect, there are some rules when you're living in rented accommodation. So some rules that you need to be aware of and to follow. Everything is explained in detail in the accommodation handbook, which is available on the link on the screen or by scanning the QR code there. So if you are going to be living in college, please do read that through very carefully before you come into residence. There are a few things that might be useful to know while you're packing for St Edmunds, though, so we'll let you know those now. So you need to keep all your belongings either in your room or a kitchen cupboard. So you're not allowed to store things in the corridor or put big things in the kitchen, for example. So think about how much you're bringing because it all needs to physically fit inside your room. The second thing to be aware of is that cooking must take place only in the kitchen. So you cannot use any kitchen appliances in your rooms. The only exception is an electric kettle, and if you are using one of those in your room, you have to put it on a tray. If you have got a medical reason for needing a fridge in your room, you can talk to our accommodation team about that. Otherwise, you're not allowed to have your own fridges or freezers in your bedroom. Also to be aware, you're not allowed to make any noise that might disturb others between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. So you are encouraged where possible to use headphones when watching or listening to things even during the day. So you might want to make sure you've got some good headphones or earbuds packed to come with you. You're able to bring a small TV for your room if you want, but bear in mind if you do watch TV in your room, you will need a TV license. If you don't live in the UK, you can Google TV license. It will tell you how much they are and what to do. Large TVs are not permitted in student rooms, so if you are bringing one, it needs to be a small one. Most people just use their laptops and things for streaming, but there is an option to bring a small one if you want to. We frequently get questions about guests in college rooms as well, so you're not allowed to have any guests during the first fortnight of the academic year. So from when you move in until sort of 2 weeks after the 1st of October. After that, but that's so that everyone can settle in and meet their flatmates properly without there being sort of friends and relatives getting in the way, because it can become quite confusing about who is actually living in a flat and who's just there to visit otherwise. So that's done to make the experience better for everybody. After that point, you are allowed a guest for up to 3 nights at a time and up to 9 nights in total in the term. So, for example, you can have 3 guests who stay for 3 nights each. That would be fine. If you do have a guest, they must be signed in at the Porter's Lodge. That's for health and safety regulations. You're not allowed to use inflatable beds in college accommodation, but you can request to borrow a fold-up bed for £10 a night, subject to availability. And you'd request that from the housekeeping team. So those are the main things to be aware of before you arrive, but obviously do read that accommodation handbook to find out all the other details. And if you've got a specific thing you're wondering about, have a look in there first. If you can't then find what you need in that, then it's best to contact the accommodation team directly. Okay, so moving on now to talk about the beginning of the year. So once you arrive, there's going to be loads of events and activities taking place. The different things can seem a bit confusing if you've never been to Cambridge before, or perhaps never even been to a UK university before. So we'll try and talk you through these things now. So these are your college registration, matriculation photograph and matriculation ceremonies, college inductions, and freshers events. So one of the first things you need to do once you have arrived is register with the tutorial team. So if you're arriving on the main arrivals weekend of the 27th and 28th of September, you can drop into the tutorial office at any time. It's open all weekend as a sort of drop-in service to get your registration done. If you arrive before that or after that weekend, because you're arriving a bit late, you will need to make an appointment online with the tutorial team, and there'll be some information out nearer the time about how you sign up to do that. You will need to bring the correct documents with you when you do your registration, and I'll talk you through those now. So all students need to bring their photographic ID, and for international students, that needs to be your passport. Obviously, if you're a UK-based student, you could also bring your photographic driving licence. If you are an undergraduate student, you need to bring copies of your exam certificates and transcripts. You need to bring the originals with you when you come to register at the tutorial office. Postgraduate students need to bring those to Cambridge and have them available in case someone in your department or the main postgraduate admissions office asks to see them. However, you do not need to bring them to your college registration. If you're an international student, you will also need to provide evidence of the date that you entered the UK. So that might be a boarding pass, might be a train ticket or a ferry ticket, something like that. You will also need either a share code if you have a digital visa or a stamped vignette in your passport. If you have no idea what a vignette is, don't worry, it means you probably haven't got one, you've probably got a digital visa. But if someone does, if you have sent your passport off and had a fancy stamp put in it, we will need to see that. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Jason now, who's going to talk about matriculation.
Thank you, Carly. Yeah, so we've spoken a bit about how to get to us, where the college is, what to expect upon arrival, how to book accommodation if you haven't already got it, and all of the rules and regulations surrounding what you need to do when you get here and what you need to provide when you get here. Now, once you get here, a lot of things start happening really quite quickly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those things. First and most importantly, at least, well, from a sort of sense of tradition, but also a sense of bureaucracy, is something called matriculation. I know that that might be a new word for many of you, but I'm going to explain a little bit about what it is. Essentially, it is the ceremony, which is the means by which you effectively become a signed up member of St Edmund's College, and by default, the University of Cambridge. So it's actually quite an important thing. You have to matriculate in order to actually start your degrees. So this is something that you really cannot miss. Now, in saying that, this is, of course, a very old university. We don't do things as simply as perhaps other universities do. Everything we do is grounded and embedded and tied up in all sorts of tradition. So the means by which you matriculate is through a ceremony. So it's kind of formal. You do have to dress up for it. You've got to wear smart clothes and wear a gown, a Cambridge University gown. And we'll help explain all of that as we get closer to the process. But it's also, it's actually quite fun. It's quite intimate in participating in that ceremony. You sort of know that you're involved in. You're going through the same ceremony that, people have been going through for over 100 years before you at St Edmund's College. So you really do leave it feeling as though you've been through something really quite important. And you come out the other side and you are officially a member of St Edmund's College. And there's the ceremony itself, the matriculation ceremony, and then there's also at a later date, there's a photo where everybody who is matriculated, in essence, all new students starting in October 2025, will gather together, and there's a big formal photo taken to commemorate the occasion. And copies of that photo can be ordered, and you can keep it as a sort of memory of the start of your degree, the start of this next chapter of your lives. I know I've still got mine from when I started my degree. It's something a lot of people treasure for years to come. Now, what's really important here is that you take on board the fact that the matriculation ceremony and the matriculation photograph are two separate things. Every year, there are one or two people that get confused and they rock up to the matriculation photo and think that that's what matriculation is. It's not. Matriculation is the formal ceremony that you have to go through to be able to matriculate. That takes place in the chapel of the college. It's not a religious ceremony, it's just that's our sort of official space. You can see a photograph of the interior of the chapel here. That's not to be confused with the photograph, which is where everybody gets together to have the photograph on the same occasion. The chapel can only fit a certain number of people in it, so we have to sort of have multiple matriculation ceremonies throughout the first couple of weeks that you're here. But then the matriculation photo will be on one single occasion. This year it's going to be on the 3rd of October. We'll be emailing all of you with the specific date that your matriculation ceremony will be on closer to the time. So do watch out for that notification. It's really, really important that you don't miss that. If of all of the things that happen in the first 2 weeks of coming to Cambridge, that's the one most important thing. It really is. So if we can go on to the next slide, please, Carly. So as well as the matriculation, the first couple of weeks will be packed with all sorts of other things. It's a really fun time. It's kind of intoxicating at the same time because there's just so much going on, all of which is good. But you are, in that first couple of weeks, going to be exposed to all sorts of aspects of the college, and slightly later, all sorts of aspects of your new department and your faculty and everything academic that takes place outside of the college. So in terms of the college induction events, these will start happening during the first week of term, what we call Freshers' Week, the week commencing the 29th of September. And there we will be hosting a series of formal events like the matriculation ceremony, as well as semi-formal events, as well as very informal fun events, and all of them are sort of geared and structured for you to, just experience and start experiencing various aspects of the college and college life. Importantly, for undergraduates, during that first week of term, during that week commencing 29th of September, there will be an induction session. That will take place over 3 days, and that will go into various aspects of what it means to be a student here. And that is compulsory. You have to go to that. So that'll take place during the daytime. Probably the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that first week of term. Postgraduates have to go to a wellbeing induction, where various aspects of student well-being, how to cope basically during what will be an intensive period of study, will be presented to you, and all sorts of resources and signposting to various resources outside of the college will be shared with you. So you've got the information at your fingertips for well, how to cope with Cambridge. It's a beautiful place, it's a wonderful place, but the intensity of study can take people by surprise sometimes. So it's important that before you begin, you're given all of the tools and resources that you need to make an effective start to your studies. So that induction sort of series of things for undergraduates will take place over 3 days. The wellbeing inductions for postgraduates will take place during either a morning or an afternoon of one of the days. Again, you'll be allocated a particular place. You'll be told which your wellbeing induction is, but both of those sessions, the induction week for undergraduates and the wellbeing inductions for postgraduates, are compulsory. In addition to those, next slide, Carly. There are a series of other events. So the college itself will be putting on a series of dinners, a series of sort of meet and greet sessions where you'll get to know various key members of the college, just so you know who they are when you might have occasion to knock on their door and say, oh, I need this or I need that. So that's sort of, you know, we're getting into the fun aspect of starting your degrees now. And then our students' union, which in shorthand is called the CR, they will be organising their own sort of student-led series of events that they'll put on for you, so you can get to meet each other, but also lots of current students who are already here, second and third year undergraduates, PhD students, and so on. Next slide, please, Colleen. So here we have a sample calendar. This is provisional at the time being, but this gives you a little idea of the range of things that will be put on for you. Some people will be arriving before you have to arrive, and of course everybody has to arrive by the 27th or 28th of September. So if you do arrive early, there's going to be a semi-formal buffet dinner put on for you on the 22nd, where you can meet other students that have arrived early. There'll be a welcome session where you can meet key staff, as I say, on the first day of that Freshers' Week. And that's followed by various other semi-formal buffets, the matriculation photo, of course, on the 3rd, and then all of the matriculation ceremonies will take place during the following week, over the 7th to 9th of October inclusive. If you're coming with children or with significant others, we also put on 2 events where your children can meet other children, where you can meet other students who are also parents. I'll be going to that with my own kids, so I hope to see you there if you're going to that. And then there's also a partners of event if you're coming with your husband or wife or significant other. Then we absolutely want to encourage you to feel that, and as a couple, as a family, you are part of the college. So we put on a special event for partners as well who are joining you as a student at St Edmunds. Next slide, please, Collie. Oops. So in addition to all of the things that the college will be doing, so matriculation ceremonies, matriculation photo, induction sessions, dinners, tea parties, all that sort of stuff. The university as a wider whole, separate from all of the colleges, the university itself holds a really big Freshers' Fair in the centre of town. And that's where all of the big university societies and sports clubs and if you can think of it, then it probably exists. There's something for everybody at this university. All of those university societies will be setting out their stalls and encouraging you to join and sign up for things that you already enjoy doing, or perhaps sign up for things that you've never done before and may never ever have an opportunity to do again, like rowing or something. And so that takes place during the second week that you're here, just before you start going to lectures and just before studies really start in earnest. So this is just to highlight the fact that will be happening and to encourage you to go along. Next slide, please, Carly. And then with all of that, once you've matriculated, of course, officially you are a member of the college, but really once you get here, Um, all sorts of things will become open and accessible to you. The college has a huge amount of resources and things that are there for you as a student, as a member of the college. Um, of course, there's the library. We've got a small gym. One day it'll get bigger, we hope. There's a music room. There are various spaces for you to sit and relax and watch TV and just hang out, all of which are yours or will soon be yours, and free to use. And I think it's important to know that in addition to those physical facilities and resources that are there and that you will be able to access, there'll also be a lot of resources available to you, of a slightly less tangible nature, but no less important and no less significant. And these range from a series of a range of uh, people and professional services that are here to support you and your well-being throughout your time at Cambridge. People who are here to help hone your study skills if you're finding that adjustment to a high level of study slightly more difficult. People who are here for your pastoral care, people are here to support you through your academic studies. And to go through all of those, I'll hand you over to Nathan now to talk about the next slide.
Great, thanks, Jason. As Jason said, once you've matriculated and you've arrived, you are a member of the college, and you're then a member of college for life. And there's a whole range of opportunities and people there to support you. So I'm just going to talk you through a few of those now. So firstly, you'll have what's called a Director of Studies. In Cambridge kind of jargon, you'll hear them often referred to as a DOS. And so that's someone who, if you're an undergraduate or you're a postgraduate student taking a taught master's course, they will be your kind of main academic point of contact throughout your course. They're there really to help and to guide you, to steer you throughout your degree, to make sure that you are happy with how your course is going and that you feel like you're making progress and that you're being supported to achieve your full potential. So that kind of relationship really takes various different forms depending on what you need and depending on who your DOS is. But at a bare minimum, you'll be usually meet your DOS at least at the beginning and at the end of every academic term. So they'll be there as a kind of touchstone that you can meet with, check in with, see how you're doing, and if there's anything that you feel like you need, they will be able to provide that for you. If you're taking a PhD or another postgraduate course, your supervisor will fulfill a similar role. So they will be there as your kind of main point of academic contact, who is there to support and guide you throughout your studies. You'll also have what's called a college tutor, and they are there to support and guide you throughout your studies in perhaps a slightly different way, and to look after your kind of pastoral well-being and your general kind of overall well-being and enjoyment of your course and your time at Cambridge. So you'll be assigned a college tutor once you arrive in October, and you'll probably meet them during that first few weeks at matriculation or during an event in Freshers Week. Again, kind of level of contact with tutors ranges according to tutors and individuals, but as a baseline, you'll probably meet them at the beginning and end of every term for a check-in. If you have any questions or queries or concerns whatsoever, you are always welcome to get in touch with your college tutor. And once you receive your allocations, you'll be given their email address so that you can get in touch with them. They can really help you to try and work out what it is that you need. If that's something that they can help you with, then they'll be able to do that, or whether they need to signpost you to the right person to get you the help that you need. That's what they're there to do. In addition to that, we also have a college-specific wellbeing team who are very active and supportive within the college. So if after you've discussed something with your tutor, you feel that you need further support, or if you have any concerns or questions about your wellbeing at any time, you're welcome to contact them. We have our Director of Wellbeing, Nkobele, who's pictured on the right there. We also have a Student Wellbeing Officer, Ocean, and a Mental Health Practitioner, Marine, as well as the College Nurse, who you can see in the bottom right. If you've got any kind of health issues whilst you're in the college, you need kind of immediate assistance, or you've just arrived in Cambridge and you've not quite got round yet to registering with a GP, then Taryn is there, and she is available in college to help you with that. So really, we want to make sure that you feel guided and supported. And the wellbeing team are very active in college. They run regular events called Wellbeing Wednesdays, where we have a whole host of different activities. So you'll find out the full program of those nearer to the time. We also have lots of study skill support available in the college. Our librarian, Christina, is lovely and is there to help and guide you with that on either a one-to-one or a small group basis. So if you do find that once you get to Cambridge and you've started your course, you feel that you're struggling with anything academic related, you know, whether it's your essay writing, how to reference, how to read academic books and articles, how to manage your time with those weekly essays, or really anything else, you can get in touch with Christina or use the online system to book an appointment with her, and she will be able to help and guide you and signpost further resources to help you with that as well. Of course, there are also lots of resources available within the wider university outside of the college, and you are absolutely entitled to access all of the resources available within the university, not just within the college. You are, of course, a member of the university as well as the college. So we have the Accessibility and Disability Resource Centre, the ADRC. They're there to provide support for students with disabilities and long-term health conditions. They can do things like organise exam access arrangements, further advise on study support, support you with funding and grants like the DSA, and offer more specialist mentoring and support if that's needed in your case. There's also the University Counselling Service, which is available for students. You can self-refer through the University Counselling Service for an initial assessment, and they will then work with you to try and work out what would be best suited to you, whether that's an individual counselling session, whether that's workshops on exam preparation, perfectionism, or whether that's group sessions to look into something more targeted, for example, if you're a student carer or if you are going through a bereavement. So please do look into those, and please do feel free to make use of all of the opportunities for support that are available through the college and the university. We're here to support you, and we want to make sure that you have the best time possible. So also just to flag for international postgraduate offer holders, there will be a webinar that's being held jointly with Homerton College this Thursday. So there'll be two sessions. There'll be one first thing in the morning, and there'll be one later in the day UK time, so that we can hopefully account for various different time differences. So the Zoom links are there, and please do come along to that if you're able to, and you'd like to find out some more specific information about support for international postgraduate offer holders.
Thank you, Nathan. We'll leave that slide there just for a few seconds so you can take a screenshot or something if you need those Zoom details. We will also email those out to international postgraduate offer holders this afternoon too. So that does bring us to the end of our sort of presentation part of the webinar. So we are going to go over to your questions that are appearing in the Slido. The link will return to the screen very shortly. So if you do have a question, do submit that to Slido and we will work through them. You may have noticed you can also upvote questions, so please do vote for questions that are also relevant to you. So we will prioritise those ones as we are working through answering them. Right, so the Slido link is still on the slide, so you can still scan that QR code to submit a question, or just type slido.com and enter that numerical code, and we will work through the questions. So, first one, I think we're not going to be able to answer either of these. They're to do with duvets and pillows. Are the duvets and pillows in the rooms new and washed or washed? Jason, do you know that? Because it might be something we need to contact housekeeping for.
Yes, I think, hang on, I'm just arranging my screens. All of the bedding that's provided is washed, it is clean. If ever the housekeeping office in the college find any bedding to be soiled or stained, then they do replace it with new before a new student is given it. So please don't worry about, any bedding that you're provided with not being clean or hygienic or anything.
And the second question was, what is the precise size of beds, duvets, and pillows in MPH? I understand that they are double beds, but I don't actually know what size they are.
No, I'm afraid I don't know the specific dimensions of the beds. I mean, there are different rooms, even within MPH. I think it's best to um, email again. I know that the accommodation office is very busy right now, but please do keep trying them. If you have a room that's already booked, let them know which room it is, and they should get back to you soon to let you know exactly how big it is. I'm presuming you need to know because you need to know what size bedding you need to buy. So no, I understand it. It's a legitimate question. Please do keep trying and let them know exactly which room you have so they can give you an accurate answer.
Thanks, Jason. So the next one is, if we've requested an early move-in date for our college accommodation, are there penalties for checking in after that date, and from when are we billed? So the answer to that one is kind of in the question. You will be charged from the date you have requested your room. So the only penalty is that you may be charged for a room that you're not in. Other than that, it doesn't really matter. Which means when you do turn up, your room will definitely be ready for you. You'll be able to pick up your card, hopefully straight away, and get access to your room. But you will be charged from the date on your contract, and that will be the early date that you've requested. Hope that answers that one. Um, for banking as an international student, why might we need a UK bank account instead of using foreign cards? Are there places that only accept UK debit cards?
Do you want me to take that one? So it is strongly advised to open a UK bank account. It's not a rule, but that is simply because if you pay for anything in this country using your foreign card, you will be charged by your bank a fee for essentially performing an exchange of international currency when you buy anything. Now, that fee that's charged can vary depending on the bank that you hold an account with, depending on the country where you hold that account. But it can be from sort of, 1 or 2% of the transaction to a flat fee of, say, $10. So, if you're using your card every time you pay for something that costs, £2, then do you really want to be paying an additional £10 as a penalty for your bank having performed an international exchange of currency every time you make a transaction? So that's why it's advised. There's no rule. It sort of makes sense. You're better off in having a UK account. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. We've got a couple about paying for rooms. So what are the logistics to pay for accommodation? Um, yeah, there's several. How do they pay for accommodation and when?
Yeah. So when you arrive, you will, a couple of weeks after you arrive, you will be given an invoice, and that invoice will cover everything. It will cover your tuition fees. It will cover your accommodation if you're living in college accommodation. It will cover all of the other additional college charges that were outlined in your offer letter and your financial guarantee that you have, of course, filled in and returned to us. Um, and you then have a couple of weeks to pay that invoice. Um, if you are being paid if you're being given money by a donor or a funder, or if you're receiving a government loan to pay for your fees or your accommodation, then there will be a different payment schedule attached to that. But in principle, you're given an invoice once you're here, once you're settled in, and then you have a couple of weeks um, to pay that invoice either in part or in full. Um, and again, the exact mechanisms by which you will have to pay will be dictated on your invoice by our accounts department, because they will, of course, know how you're funding your degree by that point. But don't worry, you don't have to pay in advance. You're given an invoice a couple of weeks after you arrive.
I
Can
think
I just make
it's
a quick point to everybody that is adding questions in the chat? Please don't add questions in the chat. As we've explained quite a few times already, we have a Slido here. So please scan the QR code in front of you, and then you can type your questions into Slido. So the next question that's been upvoted here is the use of a hairdryer and whether that is identified as a sort of unacceptable source of noise between 10 at night and 9 in the morning. I think that would very much depend on how noisy your hairdryer is and how susceptible to noise your next door neighbours are. It's certainly not prohibited. I mean, of course, if you get up really early to do exercise and you need to wash your hair and dry your hair before 9 in the morning, of course, it's not a prison. It's your home, and you should always feel as though it is your home. But of course, if anything does, disturb your neighbours, then I would like to think, we're all grown-ups and your neighbour could say, hey, that's a bit noisy, could you do it a bit later? And you'd be able to have a human interaction about that. But no, there's no rule that prohibits you from using a hairdryer between 10 at night and 9 in the morning. It's more if you're playing your music really loudly or you're watching a movie and you've got the volume really cranked up. It's that sort of noise that the college is bothered about more than anything else. Where do we buy gowns? Is the next question. That's a very, very good question. You are taken in hand by the student union when you arrive, and they help you through that whole process. I know it can be very, very well, confusing before you get here, and you're trying to figure out how to do things when you don't already know where things are and how things work. Gowns are a thing. Having a gown, owning a gown, renting a gown, it's sort of up to you. It depends on how much you want to engage in the formal side of things when you're in Cambridge. Some people choose to buy a gown. There will be a visit, at least one visit into town to the shop, which sells all of the gowns to all of the colleges. That will take place during Freshers' Week at some point. The student union will be organising that. But equally, if you want to just rent a gown, if you know you're not really going to be wearing it beyond your matriculation and then your graduation at the very end of the degree, you can rent gowns on a sort of single use basis. That's entirely up to you. You can do a quick Google search if you like, Cambridge academic gowns. That should take you to a shop called Riders and Ames, which sell the gowns, and you can get a good idea of how much they cost, just to give you an idea. Equally, some students, when they leave Cambridge, they do sell their gowns. So you can sometimes pick up a second-hand gown, sort of at the end of your first year if you're doing, a multiple year degree.
just to say I've just put a link in the chat to where you can buy gowns if you want to. We've got another question about gowns at the bottom. Is the gown also needed for formal dinners? Which is yes. So if you're planning to attend lots of formal dinners, you may find that having your own gown is very useful. Okay, back to the top. When will we be receiving the registration email for our CRS ID if we haven't already? I believe they're being sent out in batches from kind of now until the end of September. Anyone can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here. They are a bit random in their nature, so it's pretty hard to tell when you might get yours, but they are doing them in sort of blocks, which makes some sort of sense to them. So Yeah, just keep an eye on your inbox for that registration email. Basically, we're unable to tell you exactly when it might arrive.
Just to say that in a recent sway, there was a form from the CR about buddies that said that you needed to input that with the CRS ID. If you haven't yet received that and you're happy to be contacted on your personal email, it's absolutely fine to put in your personal email on that. So please don't feel that you can't fill in those kind of things that ask for a CRS ID if you haven't yet received one.
Can I interpret? Can I talk?
So I see another question that's been upvoted quite a lot. I've been offered an MPhil at Cambridge, but haven't received the registration email yet. Please, can you advise when to register? Thanks. I'm afraid I don't really understand the question here. Uh, Is I'm assuming you mean that this is some sort of a registration email that the department might send out. I'm sorry, I'm a bit unclear as to what's being referred to here. If you've been offered a place, if you've been accepted onto an MPhil course, then the next step of the process was to be offered college membership, which clearly you have, otherwise you wouldn't be at this webinar. So the next stage is for you to arrive in Cambridge, and then closer to the start of the academic year, your department will be in touch with you on your new Cambridge email address, and they will tell you when to come to the department to start your studies. There's nothing else really that needs to be done before that happens. The university knows you're coming and is assuming that you're coming, unless you tell them otherwise. So just keep an eye out on all of the emails that will start coming into your email accounts, and follow any instructions you're given. I think that's all there is to say really on that matter. If there's anything more specific that you were meaning, please do feel free to, type another question into the Slido here.
Thanks, Jason. I'm going to pick up the next one, which says, if I arrive at college on the 26th, I need to book an appointment before check-in. So if you're arriving on Friday the 26th, it's absolutely fine for you to not make an appointment and turn up on the 27th and the 28th to register. If you are arriving significantly before that Friday, then yes, you need to make an appointment to come and do your college registration. Similarly, if you are arriving after the 28th, you will need to make an appointment. So basically, if you arrive, probably the Thursday as well, if you arrive on the Thursday or the Friday, you are absolutely fine to leave your college registration until Saturday and Sunday and drop into the tutorial office any time on those 2 days. If you arrive before that, then yes, do make an appointment, or after that, make an appointment. I hope that makes sense. Basically, we're trying to make it a drop-in series, a drop-in event on the weekend where we think that the most people will be arriving. So it should be easier for you to register on those 2 days.
To deal with the accommodation fees ones, accommodation fees are invoiced termly, so you pay those each term.
I can do, are we supposed to bring pots and pans? Yes, you are. But if what happens is if the housekeeping team, they tidy all the kitchens at the end of the year, and if any pots and pans are left by previous residents and they're in reasonable condition, they will leave them there for you to use. So the best thing to do is probably come to Cambridge, meet all your flatmates, see what's been left in the flat by any previous residents, if anything, see what you've got between you, and then decide what you might need to buy after that. Because otherwise, you might find that you come down to Cambridge with a whole raft of pots and pans that you don't actually need. So probably best to get here and then find out. I'm not quite sure what's this first question that's been upvoted several times. If you are a postgraduate student and have already made a booking for accommodation, when will you find out whether it has been confirmed or what has been allocated? So if you've booked a room at St Edmund's, you should, at that point, whenever you hit confirm on your booking, that means your booking is confirmed. I can't tell you exactly what that looks like, but it's in the accommodation portal. If you followed that through to the very end and it's produced you an accommodation contract, that means your booking is confirmed. If you've done that and you're not sure, or it's not quite got to that point, and you don't know what's going on, the best thing to do is going to be to email our accommodation team with your name, and they'll be able to look it up and see if your booking got finalised or not. The only case where it wouldn't is if you sort of dipped out of the process halfway through and maybe didn't quite follow it through to completion. In terms of what you've been allocated, it should be the room that you booked. So when you go into the portal, it gives you options of the rooms that are available. You choose one to book and you follow through the various steps to secure that booking. So you should know what room you've booked. Again, if you don't, do contact the accommodation office and they'll be able to look that up for you. I hope that answers that one.
Cambridge email address one we've already dealt with. In terms of master's loans, I'm not sure if you're meaning, is this paid to you in installments or do you need to pay the college? Can you pay the college in installments? If you're getting a master's loan from Student Finance England, that will ordinarily be paid to you in installments, but it's then your responsibility to, from that money you receive from Student Finance, to pay the college your related fees. If you are getting a loan from SFE, it is possible to arrange to pay your tuition fees in installments to mirror the installments that you'll receive from Student Finance.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think really it depends on who's giving you the loan. We don't know who's giving you that loan. You do. So I would suggest that you get in touch with them and they will be able to tell you whether it will be paid to you in installments or not. Regardless, please don't worry. Any payment of invoices for the college will respect how you are being paid by your donor, by your funder, by your loan agreement. So if you're being paid your loan in installments, don't worry, the college will let you pay for the college in installments. If you're being given your loan in one lump sum, well, then the college will ask you to pay its bill in one lump sum. But how you pay us will will match how you're being funded. So don't worry, is the main takeaway.
Okay, so in answer to the one about curfew times, which you can see on the screen, there are no curfew times for entering and exiting the college. You will have your university ID card, which will look something like that, and that will allow you in and out of the buildings at any time of the day or night. There are no restrictions on bringing friends to your room. However, please note what I said earlier about guests staying overnight. That is slightly different. But if your friend is just visiting for a few hours, that's absolutely fine. They're allowed to do that. Again, just be mindful of noise, though. If you are planning to have your friends round late at night, do think about your neighbours and the fact that they might have classes or exams or something going on the next day. Does Jason or Nathan maybe want to answer the one about formal wear at the top there?
About suits, well, that's entirely up to you, really. That's the answer to that question. I mean, it depends on what you want to engage in while you're here. I mean, there will be, there are, I suppose, three occasions where you might have to wear something like a suit. One will be in your matriculation ceremony and the matriculation photo. One will be when you ultimately end up graduating from your degree. And then the third will be any sort of formal meal that you decide to go to, either in this college or in any other colleges. If you end up making friends with people in other colleges, they might invite you to their college to go to a formal meal. They're the three occasions where you might have to wear a suit socially. Now, if you're studying business management, if you're studying for a degree that might take you into formal places where you think you might need a suit, well, then obviously let that guide you as well. But I don't feel that you need to buy a whole new wardrobe of suits. Some people make do with renting a suit whenever they need one because they don't own one. Some people bring one suit with them. Some people bring three suits with them. It's entirely up to you. I don't please don't feel worried about that. I think this is another one of those things where, wait and see until you get here, and then you can figure out what you need. I think that's a much easier approach than trying to plan everything in infinitesimal detail before you arrive.
It's also worth saying there's lots of shops in Cambridge where you can buy second-hand suits quite cheaply. So yeah, it's probably best to wait till you arrive, and then there's lots of options that you can explore if you do find that you need that kind of thing.
Thank you. So we've got someone here. I requested an early move-in date, but now I no longer need it. Can I change it? The answer is you should be able to, but you will need to email the accommodation office and get confirmation from them in writing of the change of date. So that's the way of doing that. Okay, I'm going to tackle the one about sockets. For our rooms, how many sockets are provided? And if we need more, what's the process for having a trailing socket tested and approved? So if you look in the accommodation handbook, which if you're living here, you absolutely need to read that through before you come. It has a large section on sockets and trailing sockets and what is and isn't allowed. So that is the absolute best place to go and look for information. The basic gist of that section is that they have tried to put enough sockets in all the rooms that students could feasibly need. I believe the only type of socket that's allowed is a single trailing socket. So that would not actually give you any more plug points. It would simply mean that you could plug something in further away from the plug point on the wall. They do come round and do electrical testing within the first couple of weeks of term, so it can be done then. But the absolute best thing to do is read all the stuff about it in the accommodation handbook. And if you're not sure, contact the accommodation team. If you arrive and there aren't enough sockets and you're not sure what to do about it, then you can contact the maintenance department. They can come out and have a look and see if they can help you with it. That would be our advice on that one. Does someone want to answer the one about cooking and meals and things while I do some Slido maintenance?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So it kind of just depends what you want to do. Obviously, everyone pays the catering credit, which will cover the cost of all meals and food in college. So you'll pay a certain amount of money, and you can use that in our dining room and in our cafe. But there's absolutely nothing saying that you can't also cook yourself. So depending on what sort of accommodation you're offered, you might have sort of a smaller sort of you might have like a studio, a little kitchen in there, or if you're in somewhere like Brian Heap or Richard Laws, you'll have a shared kitchen that you'll share with about 6 to 8 other students. There's all the facilities there that you'll need to be able to cook meals. So yeah, you'll be able to essentially do whatever you want in that regard. Also note that at the weekends we don't provide dinner, so we provide lunch, so you will have to fend for yourself. But again, there's supermarkets, etc. So yeah, it's very much up to you.
Can I just piggyback onto the top of that? I'm watching other questions come in as we're answering them, and I've just seen one come in about whether the college provides 3 meals a day all the way through the year. I just wanted to answer that question in the same breath as the previous one because they sort of relate. It is important to sort of reflect on what the college offers also and whether that works for you when you're choosing to cook in your own room or buy food in the college. The college does not provide 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They provide what they call a continental breakfast, which means you can get some cereal or a pastry in the cafe in college during most mornings. But that's only for 5 days a week. Then there's one day where there's a cooked breakfast. I think that's a Wednesday. Otherwise, it's lunch and an evening meal. However, catering. There are periods of the year where catering isn't available, generally in the holiday times for certain weeks of the year. Again, you'll be updated about all of this when you arrive, but there will be times where you have to cook for yourself. That's just a fact. So do take that into account when you're planning, how you'll live and thrive and survive when you get to Cambridge.
Thanks, Jason. So there's one at the top at the moment is when are we going to start choosing our
Mhm.
courses and get our schedule table? That's very much going to depend on your faculty and department.
It
Um,
will. Every department and faculty will essentially have its series of induction weeks or induction events, just as the college has, and they will take place once, in quote marks, full term has started, which will be in the second week that you're here. Um, that's where, if you're an undergraduate, you'll get to choose which of your papers, which of your modules you'll be taking. If you're an MPhil, you'll be able to again choose which of the optional papers you can take alongside the main track of your masters, and that's where you'll meet your PhD supervisor if you're a PhD student, and arrange a sort of schedule of meetings. But all of that only happens once you arrive, really.
we've got another question. Are there any specific arrangements, for example, time slots, parking spaces for arriving and unloading belongings at college? So there aren't. So you just turn up when you turn up. And if it does get really busy in the car park, I'm sure our porters will help direct you so that you're not stopping in the way of everybody. But generally speaking, because people are arriving at different times over a period of several days, it usually works out okay. So just turn up when you want. You don't need to book a time slot or anything like that. Um, Jason, do you know the answer to the one at the top about BA status gowns?
Um, yes and no. This is where things get very complicated. There are lots of very arcane rules surrounding exactly which type of gown you can have. If you are an undergraduate student, then you have to wear the Cambridge undergraduate gown. That's just a fact. The fact that you have a degree from somewhere else, perhaps already, doesn't matter. You're studying your first degree at Cambridge. If you're coming in as a master's student, even if you're under 24, you will be able to wear an MA status gown. Now, the only difference there is, and honestly, you couldn't make this sort of stuff up, the standard MA status gown has two little bits of string attached to the front hem. If you've got your first degree at Cambridge, you are allowed to display those two bits of string. If you've got your first degree from somewhere that is not Cambridge, you have to tuck those two bits of string into your sleeves and never show them. That's the only distinction. By which really nerdy, geeky people can tell the difference between different types of gowns. Please don't worry about it. When you come again, when you're taken to the place where you buy your gowns, you tell them exactly who you are, what you've signed up to, what you've done in the past. They will make sure that you are given the correct gown. So please don't worry about that.
Thank you. Does it cost to attend freshers events? I'm thinking it might depend on the precise event itself. Does anybody here know anything about that? Generally speaking, I think they're either free or very cheap.
Yeah, some specific university societies ones I think you might have to pay for, but as a general rule, no, you don't have to pay.
Thank you, Nathan. That's really helpful. Um, okay, what have we got? We're starting to get through the sort of more popular questions now into the I have a studio in MPH. Do the accommodation rules apply to studios? So obviously the you can't cook in your room rule does not apply to studios because a studio has a bespoke kitchen within it where you are able to do your cooking. All the other rules about plug adapters and what you can and can't do and bring do apply to you. I hope that one makes sense. How do we be part of the student union and does it pay? Does someone else want to answer that one?
Yeah,
So there are two aspects to this question. There is the College Students' Union, which is called the CR. When you arrive, one of the charges that you will incur is membership of the CR. It's a nominal sum, but you then are a member of the college's Students' Union for life. Um, you are also, as a student at Cambridge, automatically a member of the Cambridge University Students' Union. That doesn't cost anything to join. The fact that you're a student here, either at undergraduate or postgraduate level, will automatically make you a member of the student union. It's up to you the extent to which you engage with either the college CR or the university student union. You can get involved and seek nomination and election to various positions within either student union. It doesn't pay in the sense that you get no financial reward or recompense for being a member of either. Um, uh, so that's a simple answer to that part of the question.
Thanks, Jason. I'm just typing an answer into the chat for the emergency numbers question. So in the UK, ambulance, police, and fire all work on 999. If you call them to St Edmunds, you do need to let the porters know that you have done so, just so they can help direct them to where the actual incident is occurring. There is a sort of non-emergency medical number in the UK, which I'm now typing a message about, and that's 111. You can use that if you, for example, are ill and it's not in doctor's surgery hours, or if you're not sure whether you need to call an ambulance or something like that, they can give you advice and direct you to the correct service.
The college porters are also first aid trained, so if you are having a medical emergency, feel free to go to them as a first point of contact. They're there 24 hours a day.
Thanks. On e-bikes and e-scooters are not allowed in college, so we don't have charging outlets for them. Someone's also asked about smoking in college. Smoking is also not allowed on the college site. The one at the top about matriculations, what I would do is contact our tutorial team. I'm putting their email in the chat for you now, and let them know which date it is you can't attend, and they will try and avoid that for you if they can. Obviously, a university graduation ceremony from your previous degree is a perfectly legitimate reason to need to have it rescheduled. They will not have it rescheduled because you're having tea with a friend or wanted to go out that day. It does need to be a very genuine reason like that one, but do email them and see what they can do for you. Is the move-in date Thursday or Friday? You can move in when you like. It's whatever date you've specified when you've booked your room. So there's a button on there that says request early arrival date, and it's whatever you've put there. But we are encouraging people to arrive on that sort of Thursday, Friday, probably Friday and Saturday. Probably Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are the best days to arrive if you've got a choice over it. Obviously, if you're coming from further afield or the train tickets are cheaper on Thursday or something, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that your room is booked from the day you intend to arrive. Hope that's answered that one. As I said earlier, you are not allowed a fridge or freezer in your room. You are not allowed to bring one with you or buy one when you get here. This is to do with just health and safety rules. If for medical reasons you do need a fridge in your room, do contact us and the accommodation team and we can sort that out for you, but you are not allowed to bring one with you, unfortunately. I'm not quite sure what the one about pictures is referring to. I'm not sure whether it maybe means pictures of duvets and things. In which case, what's available from the Porter's Lodge in terms of bedding packs is just the pillows and the duvet themselves. It's not the pretty covers that you put over them. So they're just plain white. And then you would go out and buy the covers to go over the top. I'll leave that one there. Can someone answer the one about guest rooms?
Yes, so if you're a part-time student, there is a possibility that you can book a guest room for your period of residence, but it will just depend upon availability during those period of residence. So the best thing that you can do is to get in touch with our accommodation team, give them your dates of residence, and to see whether there's availability.
Thanks, Nathan. We've had a couple of questions about flashes as well. So someone's got a clash. They already know that their first session is on the 7th of October from their faculty. What happens if they're allocated to that matriculation ceremony? So if you are, again, you would email the tutorial department, probably at the point that they've allocated you to that one, and say, I've actually got a faculty thing, and see what they say about that. I think the other question about that was pretty similar.
If you're an international postgrad and you're waiting for your CAS, that's something that's issued by the postgraduate admissions office. So they are the people that you need to contact. The college doesn't have any input into that process.
There is a similar question about someone waiting for their ATAS certificate. Can we contact the FCDO? Unfortunately, we have no control over this process. We're unable to expedite it, so we'd recommend that you contact the postgraduate admissions office if you've got any questions about that.
Thanks. Okay, so can master students be buddies? I guess you mean sort of the CR buddy scheme that's being set up currently for new students. So obviously you can't do that while you're a new student yourself, but once you're a bit established at St Edmunds, you can join in with that. It is a voluntary scheme, as I understand it. So when you're attending, I'm just picking up the second question, can I wear a business suit to attend formals? When you're attending a formal or a matriculation, obviously you do have to wear something under your gown. So you would wear a formal suit underneath that. The type of suit would depend very much on the particular occasion. So if it's black tie, then you are expected to wear a kind of dinner jacket and a bow tie. If it's a bit less if it's formal but not black tie, then yes, you'd be able to wear a business suit. The continental breakfast you pay for in our coffee shop. It's just a couple of pounds for a pastry, I think. So you do have to pay for it, but it isn't very much.
Yeah, it's worth just saying there that when you arrive, you will get given a something called a university card, and that's like your magic key for everything. It will open all of the doors that you're allowed to open in college. It's also the card where you can credit money to your account, and you use that card to then pay for food and drink in the college. But yes, absolutely everything that's offered in college by way of food, so breakfast, lunch, and supper, dinner, you have to pay for them. Absolutely. There's nothing free in this world anymore.
Thanks, Jason. Right, we're actually approaching the end of the webinar, but there are a few more questions, so we'll do our best in the next 5 minutes to answer as many of those as we can.
I can field a few that I've seen coming in, if that makes sense.
Go for it.
I've seen sort of some emerging trends in the questions that are coming along. First and foremost, you are allowed to bring electrical appliances into your room if they are something like a computer or a small television or a radio or something like that. You're just not allowed kitchen appliances or cooking appliances. So you can't have a toaster or a fridge or a freezer or a cooking hob or anything like that. Heaters, which is a source of another question, you would have to ask whether that was allowed. That's simply because some heaters use a lot of electricity and can become fire hazards. So it would have to be checked out before you were given permission. I think the general rule of thumb is ask before you do something, because there's nothing worse than paying for something and installing it and then being told you've got to get rid of it. There's another emerging trend coming in terms of vehicular access to the college and what sort of vehicles you're allowed. You are allowed to have a bicycle in college, a manual bicycle, not an electrical bicycle. If you have any sort of motorized transport, i.e., a motorbike or a car, you are not allowed to bring them to Cambridge. That's simply a university regulation. No student at Cambridge is allowed to have their own motor vehicle. That's simply the rule. You can have special dispensation. You can ask for permission. You have to apply formally for special permission to have a car if you need one for your studies, or if you need one because you have a specific physical or visual impairment that requires you to have use of a motor car. Otherwise, you're simply not allowed one. Now, therein lie all sorts of other rules and regulations which pertain to how far you're allowed to live in Cambridge, how far away from the city centre you're allowed to live if you don't have college accommodation. If you're an undergraduate, you have college accommodation guaranteed to you, but if you don't choose to accept it, you have to live within 3 miles of the city centre. If you're a postgraduate, you have to live within 8 miles of the city centre. Um, you are allowed to move freely in and out of Cambridge whenever you like, but technically, you are supposed to ask permission if you're leaving during term time for anything over one night. There is a university rule that says you have to remain resident in Cambridge during term time. If you don't, then, well, I mean, worst case scenario, you can be thrown out of the degree. That won't happen in practice, but you know, incur the wrath of the college and the university if you leave and just don't attend lectures and things like that. If it's just nipping down to London for the odd weekend, that's fine. But yeah, don't abuse the system again. Basic point of principle: ask for permission first, then do what you want to do.
Thanks. There's a few about CAM cards as well. So in theory, you should get your CAM card on arrival. The only time you might not is if there's been an error with your photo. Do watch your emails over the summer because we do try and contact students where we can see that that's going to happen. It just means the photo you uploaded when you applied is not suitable for a CAM card. But if you've uploaded a sort of passport style photo, it should be absolutely fine and it should be ready and waiting for you. If it's not ready and waiting, the porters will give you a temporary card. We can chase that and it should be with you within the first week at least. I've seen a couple of people who've said they can't arrive during Freshers Week. Of course, you can pick your CAM card up when you do arrive. They don't disappear into a puff of smoke at the end of Freshers Week. So if you have got a problem to do with visas or travel or something that means you are going to arrive slightly later, they will still be here for you. Similar question about sort of registration and things. If you don't have the exam certificates for your recently taken qualifications, do continue with your college registration. It's really important that you do that quite soon after you arrive. You can bring those certificates to show us later once you have them. Obviously, if you've just finished something, we do understand that you may not have that certificate right ready in Freshers Week or the beginning of October. So that's absolutely fine. Do everything else, take everything else, take your passport, take your visa if you have one, and your boarding pass if you need to show that as well. And we can follow up the certificate with you at a later date. As for cleaning frequency for bathrooms, I'm not 100% sure. I know that kitchens is once a week. I know that bins get emptied twice a week. I would imagine bathrooms are one or the other. So you're looking at having it cleaned at least once a week, if not more often. If you want to email the accommodation team, they would be able to tell you. Do we have to pay for aspects of college freshers events? So the formal dinners and the semi-formal dinners, you do have to pay something towards, but it's nowhere near as expensive as it would be if you went and had a formal meal in a restaurant. The matriculation photograph and your matriculation ceremony itself, you do not have to pay for. Similarly, the college induction events and anything where you're meeting college staff are also not, you don't have to pay for those.
For post, there's a student post room in the Norfolk building, so that's where you'll find your mail and your parcels. Some oversized parcels might be with the Porter's Lodge. There's also a specific post room in Mount Pleasant Hall for people who live in Mount Pleasant Halls.
Couple of questions have come in about matriculation for part-time students. So your matriculations do work a bit differently. If you want to and are able to attend the matriculation photograph on the 3rd of October, you are absolutely welcome. If you can't because you'd have to take time off work or you live miles and miles from Cambridge, it's absolutely acceptable for you not to if you're a part-time student. Part-time student matriculation ceremonies tend to be a smaller affair than the main ones, and they will be arranged to coincide with your first week in Cambridge. So don't worry that you're going to have to come all the way here, especially for one.
There are a few questions about sort of problems of accommodation, like who can I contact if I smell cigarette smoke? What if we have problems with our neighbours? And in the first instance, I would say to speak to the porters at the Porters Lodge as the first point of contact. Alternatively, speak to the accommodation team. But also, you could even just, speak to the neighbour himself and just, maybe just even having a conversation about it might help, just to prevent things from escalating further. But nobody should be smoking on site.
Thank you. Do I need my original master's certificates? Yes, you do. Even if your department have said everything is fine, it is quite likely you will be asked to show them to the postgraduate admissions office. They take a random sample every year of students who are coming in. So it is best to have them with you in Cambridge. Can I change my room booking if any vacancies happen? So I think this means like someone's booked a room, but if a better one comes up, can they change it? I believe the answer is going to be no, but you can email the accommodation office to check that one if you would like to. Can I change my photo right now? Yes, if the self-service portal will allow you to do so, you can change your photo. What happens is the cards are sort of automated. So if it goes to look for your card and there's no photo there because you're changing it, it will simply try again a week or so later. So it shouldn't cause a problem. Um, is it okay to use the UK EU plug adapter? Again, I would refer to that section in the accommodation handbook, which explains all that in detail. That's the best place to go. If your course starts early, you should get your university card in time for your course. The university card office are aware of the courses which start early, and they do prioritise those ones to try to make sure they are ready for you. Um, Anything to do with visas or pre-settled status, I think you're going to be best to contact the International Student Office for advice. If you don't already know whether or not you need a visa, you ought to probably look into that quite quickly because they can take some time to process.
For how your exams will work as an incoming affiliate medic, you'd be best to contact your department specifically. They'll be able to help you with all the information about that.
Duvet and pillow, I see no reason why you couldn't supply your own and give them back to the college. That would be something to talk to the housekeeping team about when you arrive. So that does bring us to the end of the questions. Sorry for the last ones being a bit of a rush, but hopefully that we have been able to answer everything that's there. So we will be disappearing now. If there's anything you're still not sure about or that we haven't answered, do reach out and contact us. And if it's an accommodation question, do contact the accommodation team directly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.